And now I say the same thing here. Show me the option. What were they supposed to do? Burst through the fence and then lie down on the floor and sit? No, seriously. My friend Jamie, he's the smartest guy going and the decentest guy going. He says, well, sometimes in my imagination, I wonder what would happen if they had burst through the fence and then disarmed themselves. I know exactly what would happen. Israel would shoot them all and then say they were about to shoot us. And everyone would believe it, exactly with the hospital. You know, self-defense, they had weapons and they were about to shoot us. And, you know, then the New York Times would come along and find wiretap, you know, evidence that it was a plan that once Israel came to them, they were going to take out their weapons. You get the picture. What were they supposed to do? Tell me the option. They tried nonviolence. Hamas in 2007, it made many proposals to resolve the conflict along the lines of the international consensus, as it's called, the two-state settlement. There were many statements they made. I can read them now from the book, but I think we're all getting tired. That wasn't an option. Nonviolence wasn't an option. What were they supposed to do? I think what everybody expected they would do is they would languish and die in that game preserve, that elephant burial ground. That's what they were supposed to do. That was Bernie Sanders. He said, well, the international community, we were all working so hard to bring about justice in Palestine, and then along came Hamas on October 7th and ruined everything. No, Bernie, I have a very high regard for you, but let's be clear. You did nothing. I did nothing. Nobody did anything. They were left there to die. That was the fate that was meted out to them, and they refused it. They refused it. People say, was it tactically wise? Was it strategically wise? I don't know the answers to that. I'm not a military person, far from it, as far from it as one can be. But then you ask the question, I know, how many of you are Jewish? Okay. So, you know, a heroic chapter in the Jewish history is the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Mm-hmm. It happens, both of my parents were in Warsaw up until the uprising. The survivors were deported to Majdanek concentration camp. Both of my parents were among the survivors and deported to Majdanek. So, you take the case of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. They had no weapons. They had 2, 3 guns. It's the ghetto. Mm-hmm. You know, let's be for real. Did they expect to defeat the German army? The Red Army couldn't defeat the Wehrmacht. A few Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto are not going to defeat it. So, why did they do it? There's no strategic, no tactical advantage to doing it. Why did they do it? So, they did it because they wanted to die with dignity, to die fighting. Now, you can make an argument because people are saying Hamas brought all this on with October 7th. It was stupid, it was insane what they did. Well, you know, you can make the argument right after the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was repressed, Warsaw was flattened. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Germans came in, flattened it, okay? You can make the argument that the uprising accelerated, catalyzed the destruction of the ghetto. It speeded up the murder plans, that it was tactically unwise, it was stupid. what they did, because all they did was give the Germans an excuse to flatten the whole ghetto at that moment. Now, you're going to say, well, your analogy falls apart because they targeted military people, whereas Hamas targeted civilians.
And military.
And we will never know the numbers, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. And analogies have they have limits. So I'll say, you know, during the war, the United States engaged in terror bombing against Germany. The estimates range widely, but in the course of the terror bombing of Germany, about up to 800,000 German civilians were killed. So I once asked my mother, what do you feel about, how do you feel about the terror bombing? And she said to me, our view was, if we're going to die, we're going to take some of them with us. That's how she put it. Now, my mother was a very humane person. She would not even conceive, she could not even conceive that there was something immoral about the statement she just made. She couldn't even you couldn't even argue with her on that point. If we're destined to die, we're going to take some of them with us. And the people of Gaza were left to die. They were locked up, call it an open-air prison, call it a concentration camp, call it a game preserve, whatever you want to call it. They were locked up and they were left to die. So if that's what we're left to do, we'll take some of them with us.
Do you think it will create a crisis that would lead to some moral clarity? Because
I've lived through and written about a half dozen of these.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. At the end, there are always promises to loosen, if not lift the blockade, and they're forgotten a week later.